for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Marsh!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, it is Friday, so that means On Campus Friday, and very excited to bring on our guest, not just because he's an amazing broadcaster, but of course because he is part of the UMass broadcast, not just for hockey, also basketball, and he is a UMass alum like myself. Joining us now here on Campus Friday on the Eye Test is the play-by-play man that does some games with Pierre McGuire right here. Nathan Strauss joining us here on the broadcast. Nathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. You know, it's so funny. I listened to the show from earlier this week, and I like that you can have someone with 14 Stanley Cups on, and the next day you get a 25-year-old from the greater Boston area just to talk some hockey. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Coach Carvel gave him the attire so he could do some recruiting while he's on the show too.
I'm not sure they would want me to do the recruiting pitch, but Pierre, great to see you. But we just did a nice game, including one Ryan McGuire on Saturday night last week.
Yeah, that was a good comeback by Northeastern after the night before. Let's just actually, you know what? Let's start there with that weekend there, because there was one thing that stood out to me, even in defeat for UMass, Nathan, and that was Michael Hrabal and the performance he had. And, you know, I think given the fact that he was fresh off the World Juniors and he's come back and he still continued to play at the level he was playing at in Canada at the World Juniors, how much did that impress you that he was able to keep that momentum going?
I mean, so much of goaltending is mental, right? And, you know, a locked-in goalie, a focused and calm goalie will be a good goalie. And he's been outstanding. Really, since the first couple of weeks of the year where there were some rough spots, he's been excellent. And, you know, you can't teach size. And obviously at 6'7", he is, it's pretty hard to sneak anything by him at his near post. But really, you know, I think coming back from World Juniors with a second straight bronze medal, you know, having stopped 12 shootout attempts in that bronze medal game, it really seems to have dialed him in. And at this point, I'm just hoping for one more year of him before Utah decides to, you know, get that ELC done. But I'm really excited for him. I think there's every likelihood that he's going to be, you know, the next great UMass goalie in the pros.
I agree. I think he's got huge upside just because of what Nathan said, Jimmy, because of his size. But the thing to me that's interesting about UMass, they lost a lot of players last year, obviously on defense in particular, with Morrow and Ufko moving on. How do you see them moving forward in terms of the young guys are breaking in, Nathan?
Well, some of the young guys they've got right now have shown real flashes, right? Francesco Nelelche just came in the top 100 for the North American skaters for Central Scouting's midseason list. But really, you know, Coach Carvel and this staff have done such a good job of development. I think they were named the best developmental program a couple of years ago. And it's been sort of the players who stick around for that third year in particular are the ones who see the biggest jump. I know someone who you guys have talked about before, and when you guys talked to Coach Carvel earlier this year, was a guy like Lucas Mercury, who after 2 years of kind of adjusting to the college game, all of a sudden breaks out last year and now is, you know, one of the real leaders on this team. That's my favorite part of college hockey, actually, is the players who stick around and who learn the system, who stick around. So, you know, there isn't a Morrow or Ufko on this year's team, but there are also some recruits in the pipeline who could be that next one too, because you look in the last 5-6 years, you go Cale Makar and Mario Ferraro, Zach Jones, Mark Del Gaizo, both guys who have spent most of this season playing in the NHL. And then Ufko and Morrow and Matt Kessel as well, who spent a good amount of time with the Blues. So it's, you know, that's 7, basically, I mean, with various abilities from Cale Makar down, that's 7 NHLers in the last 6 years from UMass's blue line alone.
I agree 100%. And Jimmy, you know what's cool? What Nathan was just saying about Lucas Mercury. He's a kid from Montreal who's got tremendous upside. And Carolina is a team that if you look at, you know, their checking centerman, and that's the role Mercury's going to play, Jordan Stahl's probably their best guy, and he's not getting any younger, you know, and so it was really smart for Mercury to stay. And I could tell you from having watched him a lot this year, where he was last year to where he is this year, it's a completely different player. Really, they've done a really good job with that young man. Really good job.
Nathan, what's it like just dealing with Coach Carvel on a day-to-day basis? We know him well, but for our viewers out there, you're dealing with him now as a broadcaster. You have to get updates. You have to know what's going on. What's he like as a coach to deal with from a media standpoint?
This is a great question because I got a chance to know him as a 19-year-old who had never done any sort of media, anything before. When I came to UMass as a new sophomore, I transferred in. No sports media experience whatsoever. And I got to learn a really valuable lesson, which is that the only way to get better is to make lots of mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I asked lots of terrible questions when I was younger. I was too much of a know-it-all, or I wouldn't read the room right. All kinds of things that are part of the normal growing experience. But this is Greg Carvel. He's got the gravitas. He's got this really dry sense of humor. And it took a while to kind of build that relationship. But now it's outstanding. It's year 6 now that I've known him. And, we're able to talk about things that aren't hockey. Now, like, he is so good with student media in particular. Like, I think that if he were less forgiving when I was making my mistakes, I probably wouldn't have had the enthusiasm to stick around. But he actually does care. And he knows that kind of, especially at the college level, all coverage is good coverage. And he kind of helps us along too. Which is pretty nice. And there's people who have there are some people who have covered UMass as students, Molly Walker, Tori, Evan Marinovsky, who have now gone on to things in the NHL world as well. So it's great. He's honestly great with the media. And when I can make him laugh with a question, that's when I know real confidence in our relationship. But
isn't this great to see?
He wrote my letter of recommendation for grad school. Like, this is someone who actually cares and is invested in the community. Like, I really can't thank him enough for providing me the platform to do what I do.
Mentorship here. Mentorship.
None of this surprises me about Greg Carvel. I recruited him out of the Hotchkiss School. I coached him at St. Lawrence. He spoke at my wedding, and I was part of the group that drafted him in Pittsburgh. So I think I know him pretty well. And I'm so glad that Nathan has that feeling. So mentorship that Jimmy just talked about is important. Do you have one broadcaster, play-by-play person in any of them, whether it's football, baseball, basketball? I think you want to do hockey, which I think you're going to be very good at. Is there one guy that you say, I need to be more like him?
John Forsland, without a doubt. I think when it comes to hockey play-by-play folks, he's the one who I think synthesizes the things that I like the best. Like, I grew up as a huge Jack Edwards fan. I grew up in Boston. Jack was the guy. And listening to Gauche on the radio as well. So I think there's a little bit of that Boston, I don't want to say homerism, but that Boston hometown enthusiasm that I would like to bring wherever I end up and at whatever level I end up at. But John Forsland, whether he's doing Kraken games or back when he was with the Canes, whether he was doing Canes games or whenever he slides over to the national booth, he brings the same level of connection to the teams. And I think sometimes people lose that a bit on the national level, and he finds a way to make it connected. But other guys that I would just shout out, Mark Mosier in Colorado does a similar sort of thing. Mm-hmm. There are so many talented folks out there, right? Across all sports. Those would be my favorites. But of course, no one taught me more, Pierre, than Doc Emmerich as a kid, who I think added at least 50 words to my vocabulary, every other Sunday.
Mine too. But I'm going to tell you who I think you're like. And I think you should study him. I think you're like one of my old partners, Kenny Albert. And I think Kenny Albert is spectacular. And I told this to Jimmy yesterday. And I've never told this to you. I wanted to say it in front of all these people that are watching. If I were Nathan Strauss, I would study Kenny Albert.
There you go.
That's who I think
That's
you're
high
like.
praise, Nathan.
I was going to say that is high praise. And, I believe I just watched him last night. I think I watched his game last night.
Minnesota Edmonton.
Yeah, I watched him last night, and he was outstanding again. They had Billy G on in the second period to talk, Four Nations. It was great. And he's someone who also has that versatility to do. You could throw him on any sport too. So that's high praise here. I appreciate it.
So I got to share this with all of you. When Kenny does football games, I text him, and the interim football coach of the New Orleans Saints, Darren Rizzi, he went to my high school in New Jersey, Bergen Catholic High School. So Kenny always talks to him and gives me texts about him. And Kenny's my eye in the sky for the New York Giants, my favorite football team. So I talked to Kenny about that. Kenny does baseball in the summer. We talk about that. Kenny does NBA basketball. We talk about that. Kenny can do. I did women's water polo with Kenny at the Olympics. I mean, Kenny can do anything, and I believe Nathan can do anything, Jimmy. I do, and I know what his schedule's like, and that's why I would say if there's somebody that, if I were in his shoes, that I would be studying, it would be Kenny Albert.
Wow, there you go, Nate.
I'm writing it down. Right? I'm writing it down right now.
No need to hire an agent. You're all set. There you go.
You know what? I would trust either of you guys with being an agent. Honestly, I mean the connections that you guys have and the just the Rolodex of this show is just below, right? Like,
you know, we're Irish. We get the gift of gab too. So there you go. Nathan, one thing I wanted to ask you, I brought this up actually, I think it was yesterday, Pierre, right? When we were teasing you coming on Campus Friday this week. And I was saying that, and this is something that you've done a great job of taking advantage of, is the advent of ESPN Plus doing so many, giving so many opportunities to people in your age group, to kids just out of college, trying to get a start in a business, and allowing you to, you know, get so many reps, whether it's hockey, whether it's basketball, whatever, that they're allowing you to do that at the college level, I think is really helping your generation. It's a great asset to have. Yeah. When you saw this, as you know, it got bigger and bigger, I think you would have to say it really boomed right after COVID, or right during and after COVID. Did you kind of look at it and say, this is a great opportunity for me?
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's really interesting. So, you know, I get high. I mean, when I was a student, they needed broadcasters for Olympic sports. So I was doing women's soccer and lacrosse and field hockey, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all hired through the schools. Like the home schools produce the broadcasts, as we know. And they were throwing like a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old me on, really 19-year-old me on with like no broadcast experience whatsoever. But that was huge because it showed me that I could do this. And I think for everyone benefits, right? The parents who can't make it, they now have a professional looking stream or professional stream to watch it on. You can now watch games. You can watch any game that you want, more or less. Mm-hmm. And now, especially in the post-COVID world and with all of the conferences more or less being on ESPN Plus, I think the NCHC is still on CBS, and they've got their own sort of TV service out there with a lot of mid-coast stuff. And Alex Heinert does a great job there. But it's awesome, right? Because I can sit down now, knowing that we've got Merrimack on, tonight and tomorrow, and say, boy, I really want to practice their D pairs. So I can pull up their game that they did up in Dartmouth earlier this year, and all of a sudden turn off the volume and say, okay, there's Ivan Zivlak, there's Josef Misak. Like I can go on and on and on like that. So that's huge. And then of course the opportunity, right? Like I was 20 years old and I was able to say, you know, even partially that I had a broadcast on an ESPN platform, right? Which is not the same thing as where I hope to be someday, but it's huge, right? And it's great that, you know, my grandparents in Arizona can tune in and watch. The parents from around the world, we've got a lot of international players. Coach Carvel and co have done a great job of recruiting Europe. I've got parents from the Czech Republic and from Sweden who have DM'd me saying, you know, we're tuning in from Göteborg, or we're tuning in from Prague. So it's really, really cool. And I think it's great for the sport of college hockey in particular.
Agreed, 100%. That's really well said. That's really a good job by you, Nathan. So, Nathan, Hockey East is a beast. It's a bear. You've been at this for a while now. You're 25. You probably started watching Hockey East when you were, 16, 17, probably, give or take. How's it grown?
I'll do you one better. So my best friend, his godfather, was a big BU donor and a big BU season ticket holder. So I've been going to BU games, actually, since I was about 11 years old. And I remember watching the Jack Eichel year was the first year that I really remember watching. But it really has grown, right? I mean, I think the transfer portal has helped a little bit in that regard. I think the teams that have struggled a little bit historically have now gotten stronger and gotten older. But it's just the amount of talent. I mean, I root for Hockey East players in the NHL now. You know, I heard you guys talking about Lane Hudson. Lane Hudson terrorized UMass for 2 years. Lane Hudson terrorized everyone for 2 years. Lane Hudson terrorized UMass for 2 years. And he was incredible. The only player whose numbers compared to him is Cale Makar, and Lane Hudson had the benefit of a guy named Macklin Celebrini last year. So, you know, it was, to get to your question, the league itself is tremendous. And I think there's a lot of pride, not only in the players of the league, but how the league is showcased. And you got to thank guys like Brian Smith and going all the way up top to Steve Metcalf with Hockey East, who have really done a good job of positioning the conference as a league that's broadcast on ESPN Plus, and it has the Nesson deal. And a few weeks ago, you had Bucci and Colby going up to Orono for Maine Denver at Alphon. Like, that's such a good showcase of the league. Like, every barn is special. Every game is so intense. I mean, you could pick out, I think, you could throw a dart at the schedule and you would find a good game. And, the amount of draft picks alone from teams like UMass, BU, Northeastern, BC, you're looking at games where you could have 20 plus drafted players on the ice. And that's, that's one thing that the NCAA has done a great job of catching up with the CHL. And now I think probably overtaking the CHL, or, I mean, we'll see how it works, next year with the new additions, but it's great. Like, it's such a good showcase for the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Jimmy, you know what else, Jimmy, that I think that Nathan touched on that's really important. He's talking about Mr. Metcalf in particular, who we got to know really well over in Ireland. I can't believe the consistency, and I mean this in a positive way, not a negative way, the officiating in the Hockey East, and I think that's right on Brian Murphy. You get a guy right out of the NHL, just off the ice, he gets it, and the guys buy in. He's got unbelievable street cred and the officiating, I think, in Hockey East is as good as anywhere I've seen in the country. And I think that's what leads to a lot of the good games too, is good officiating.
I'd agree. Go ahead, Nathan. Do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, we ask, Pierre, we talk to a lot of coaches around the league, and Jimmy, you too, and scouts and people who watch. And we went out and did a tournament out in Arizona a couple of weeks ago. And there was some officiating that kind of raised an eye. And I was talking.
Nice way to put it.
And to be fair, look, I think being an official is a tremendously hard job. And I think it's deserving of a lot of respect, even if there are times when I might disagree with a call. But I definitely think watching Hockey East games, we're pretty lucky with the crew that we have, from the Brigantes to Shane Canale and basically all the way up. Like, every single person who works a game in Hockey East does a great job. And the weekly clips, Coach Carvel, we talked to him about it. They send out kind of a weekly video review of calls so that coaches know what to expect, which is huge.
Yeah.
I just have to say one more thing on that, and then I don't want to pick on the officials, but I was out at Magnus Arena at Denver University this fall.
I remember this.
And
I remember getting these texts.
This is not a knock on DU, by the way. That's an amazing building, awesome fans, and a great team, and an awesome coaching staff. Really, all tremendous. I saw officiating, especially the second night, where I called up people, and I'm like, you got to watch this tape, and you got to tell me what you think of this performance. I was mortified. I had never seen officiating like that, and they need to wake up because their product on the ice is phenomenal. But they're being brought back by some of the caliber officials that they have.
Oh, there you go. You should have seen the text I was getting during that, Nate.
I can imagine. We went out to Denver in 2019-20, right at New Year's, and John Leonard got 3 or 4 cross checks to the head while lying face down on the ice, and it started a whole brawl. Led to a couple game suspension for a guy. Like, that was the first moment where I was like, there is, a player safety component as well. But bygones, etc. So
you move on.
I want to go back to you. You're talking about Lane Hudson and Cal McCarr, and as an announcer, look, I'll go back and tell you when I was at UMass many moons ago, I tried play-by-play. Just wasn't for me. I was way better at color and way better at writing. And one of the things, we didn't have any players that caliber at that time. We were lucky if we won 2 games a year back at those days. But I've always wondered, for a play-by-play man, when you get a player like a Cal McCarr or a Lane Hudson that can be so elusive, that can shift gears so fast on the ice, that makes things happen. And obviously the game is a fast game. You're used to that. But for specific players that can play it at a warp speed ahead of other players, how is you, as a play-by-play man, do you keep up with that and kind of sort of sense where they're going to go?
I have 2 answers, and I'll give you the authentic one first and then the boilerplate one second. So the authentic one is you kind of let them do what they do, right? Like, the players who are unpredictable, the players who are shifty. So I missed out on Cale. I arrived right after he signed, but I obviously knew who he was. Right. The players who I can think of who were like that, and again, this is at the college level, right? The best players at the college level aren't always the most dominant at the next level. But John Leonard, my freshman year, or my sophomore year rather, was leading the NCAA in goals by, I think, 8 when COVID paused the season. And he had a couple of hat tricks. He would do things that other guys couldn't. Other people like that. Matt Boldy at BC was very similar to that. He was on a line, I think, with Nikita Nesterenko and maybe might have been Alex Newhook too, actually. I think that might have been a line. Like, that was outstanding. Scott Morrow would do things with his edges that I've never seen players do before, except for Kale. Totally different skater, because he's sort of more creative with the puck at his, like, Kale has these unbelievable crossovers and this unbelievable foot speed that maybe only Nathan McKinnon has. But guys like that, and I'm sure Macklin Celebrini is another great example of this, and Cutter Gauthier as well. There are guys who are just, and John Leonard right now, Ryan Leonard right now. There are guys who are just commanding when they're out there, and you kind of just want to let them do their thing and let them dominate and let them take over. Okay. And don't get ahead of it. I think that's an issue for me, is I want to show people that I know that I know the game sometimes too much. And so I think I'm still working on actually backing off a little bit and letting their talent showcase it. And then the boilerplate answer is that I want every player to have that special moment, right? So that's why, I've got my boards where, I memorize basically every player, and I talked to Jack Edwards and he told me to stay 2 weeks ahead. So right now I've memorized Alaska for a few weeks from now. And so that way, if someone has their first moment or a moment, like, that's the boilerplate answer, is to always be prepared. Right. But yeah,
I'm doing the Alaska game with that young man, by the way. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Hey, Nathan, I just got to ask you, Bobby Trivigno, you didn't mention his name. He's one of my all-time favorites, just because an undersized guy that brought the heat every single day. What about him?
I have a great Bobby Trivigno story. So speaking of asking bad questions, right? Coach Carvel opens up a weekly media session a few years ago and says, we haven't been getting to the net front enough. We haven't been playing big enough. And by big, he doesn't mean size-wise. He obviously means being hard above pucks and, playing physical. And I was talking about Bobby Trivigno. I asked him, Bobby Trivigno is not the biggest guy. How do you want to see him playing big? And of course he said, he said to me something along the lines of, you think he's small? You think he's weak? And he goes, I'm going to tell Bobby you said that. And he did tell Bobby that I said that, which of course was not what I meant whatsoever. And I had to apologize. I made sure that the message got through. But the reason I didn't say Bobby Trivigno is because the way he impacted games was not by skating around everyone. It was by skating through people and getting under people's skin and being an emotional leader. And I think, he was part of the turnaround at UMass, where he came in as a freshman, left after putting up 2 of the best seasons in UMass history. He was so consistent and so involved. You could throw him out there for 28 minutes a night and he would make an impact. So maybe I should apologize for not putting him in that list as well. But he would drag guys forward. And of course he was the architect of, one of the biggest goals in UMass history, to send UMass to the national championship game, which they won. So Bobby T, great guy, real good captain. And of course, someone who I once, said, I guess, that he was short and light.
Well, but that's why I brought him up, because I watched him and I was a huge fan. And I was, at one of those years, I was working in the NHL for a team. And I was like, I'm intrigued by this player. And another time I was just watching him play. Coach Carvel told me to watch him, and I did. And I was like, he's good. But it shows you how hard it is to make it.
Yeah.
This guy was really good. Nathan knows, you saw. And I think he's playing in Europe right now, isn't he, Nathan?
Yeah, so he's over. He's over in Sweden with Brynäs. You would know it better than me, but he's with
Brynäs, which is just north of Stockholm. Probably one of their best players is Nicholas Backstrom all time. But so all I'm saying is he got signed by Rangers, Jimmy, and he was in Hartford. And for whatever, it shows you it's just a meat grinder. And it's kind of backing up Nathan's point. He wasn't overly large. So that ability to do that in college, skate through people and overpower people, couldn't do it at the pro level. It just shows you there's slight differences, not a ton of difference. The pace isn't any different,
Yep.
It's a physicality. It's the everyday grind. It's hard. So like that's why I think Lucas Mercury, who we just talked about, I think he's got a legitimate chance to play in the NHL. But if you were to say who had more of an impact on UMass hockey, Lucas Mercury or Bobby Trivigno, I think most people, and Nathan, if I'm wrong, tell me, they'd say Bobby Trivigno.
Yeah, and like I would never want to compare, but Bobby T was an instrumental player on a UMass national championship team who captained the team and helped them go from the worst season in in UMass history, right? Coach Carvel's first year was the losingest season. I think they had 5 wins, 5-32, to the winningest season in UMass history. It was Bobby and that entire class who really did that. So huge, I think Bobby paved the way. Right. So
that's my point. This is for younger people out there. Don't judge a book by its cover. Watch the whole process for the player. And that's why I'm saying, people a year ago are probably saying Lucas Mercury, no way is he playing in the NHL. And I can tell you right now, he's got a real good chance of playing in the NHL. He's got a real good chance.
And if you're going to judge a book by its cover, don't say it to the book's face or to the book's coat.
Pretty awesome. There you go.
See, that's a Kenny Albert. That's a Kenny Albert right there.
There you go. Like it. Well played. Well, Nathan, listen, we really appreciate you joining us here on the Eye Test on Campus Friday, and looking forward to all your broadcasts coming up. I'll be watching this weekend as they take on Merrimack. So best of luck. We'll get you on down the road, huh?
Thank you so much. And can I just say one thing, Pierre? I just wanted to ask you what it was like to broadcast a game that involved your son. I had the pleasure of meeting your entire family, and really grateful for that. And actually, the reason Pierre was doing these games with UMass, I know you're up on time, so I apologize. But
no, we're not.
No, we're not. There's no time for you to keep
time.
talking.
Can I tell the story about? Right? So last year we're at the NCAA tournament in Springfield, and UMass has just lost a heartbreaking 2-1 double overtime game to Denver, and it's like the game took like 4 hours. Like it was an absolute marathon. I was up since like 6:30 because I was getting stuff ready, and I get wired for these games. Oh. So it's now like 5:30 in the afternoon. We had the early start, and we just did this like grueling broadcast, grueling game. Like the season's over, still processing, and I'm like 5 feet over there. Is that Pierre McGuire? And I was like, you know what? I think it is Pierre McGuire. And I knew that you coached Carv because Carv has talked about, during the BC series last year, you talked about you being a mentor for him. And I said, you know what? Why don't I just go say hi? So I said, Pierre, I know who you are, obviously. You don't know who I am, obviously. But I do some broadcasting at UMass. I know we're all busy. We're in the middle of a tournament. Would you be willing to would you ever want to do some games at UMass? And you said, Nathan, I would love to. Absolutely. Call me, this summer, and we'll make it work. And that was like the most gracious response to what was basically an in-person cold sale or cold email. And I'm super appreciative of that.
Well, I got to tell you, you made such a big impact on me. I couldn't wait to go do those games. I look forward to them. They remind me so much of working with Doc Emmerich or with Kenny or with Chris Cuthbert. I look at every game, and I think you see how I do it. I get to the rink pretty early, as you know, just like you do. And I look at every opportunity to broadcast as an opportunity to do a Game 7. I see every game like it's a Game 7. Just like every show I do with Jimmy, he probably gets mad at me, but
no,
like I get him on the phone early in the day, and I'm like, dude, you better know this, and this, and if you don't, I'm going to get pissed at you. and so he does, and that's what I love about working with Jimmy, and it's the same with you, Nathan. And like when I throw out a compliment saying, copy what Kenny Albert does, I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I think I know how good you're going to be. I don't pretend. I know how good you're going to be. And I think the trajectory is the same as with Kenny. And so that's as high as I can go praise-wise. Kenny is elite, man. He's elite. But I look forward to every single one of those games. I can't wait to do the radio game with you at UConn. Yeah. Like, we're going to bring the heat, man. I can't wait to be there.
I think your energy raises me up too. Obviously there's the benefit of, calling games with a multiple time Stanley Cup winner and someone who, is who you are. But yeah, I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys having me on as well. It's great to talk hockey, and it's great to like talk about, I think you could name any hockey player of the last 60 years. And the two of you are going to know it. My last favorite Pierre story before I let you go, and in our brief time knowing each other is I mentioned, I was talking about how much I valued his Rolodex growing up, watching games, those NBC games, and there would be a player, a fourth liner who was just called up, and you would say, oh, he spent some time in Flin Flon with the Bombers back in the day, and I knew his father back in Saskatoon, whatever the case would be, right? And I love that because hockey is such a community game, and it's such a community and family sport, and we saw that this last weekend. But I mentioned, when I was at high school, and we didn't have anyone drafted on my high school team then. We had Rob O'Gara a few years before, and we had, Matty Beniers a few years later. But we had a guy, Bobby Beniers, who's Matty's older brother.
Bowdoin College.
And immediately I said, there's no way you're going to know this guy. But Bobby Beniers was in my English class, and he goes, oh, Bobby Beniers, Long Island kid, Bowdoin College. And I said, yeah. Which was just it was just the best. Like, this is there's no reason for anyone to know that. So I appreciated that a lot.
Well, I watched Matty for a lot of years. He and Ryan my son used to go head to head, South Shore Kings versus Mid Fairfield Rangers. And it was fun to watch. Yeah. Who was another player on that team was Berard, who's playing for the Rangers. He was on that team. He and Beniers were line mates. It was tremendous to watch that. They're one of their best defensemen, a kid named Nolan Hayes, who's at Northeastern. He's injured right now, not playing. But, yeah, I love what you just said, Nate. That's why I think your future is so bright. Don't ever look past that stuff, because there's always – I tell this to Jimmy all the time. There's always some young player who a whole community helped to get to where he is. And those players appreciate that. And whenever they can give a shout out to their town or to their youth coach or their third grade teacher, they appreciate that. Like, I'll tell you, where I was hooked on hockey was my grandfather brought me to Old Madison Square Garden in 1965. And I saw the Rangers play the Canadians. And it was not the new garden, it was the old garden. And the smells, whether it was a cigarette smoke or the hot dogs or the popcorn or the stale beer, there were odors in the rink that as a kid I had never experienced. Because in Montreal, they didn't have that. Like, you could eat off the floor at the Forum. It was way different. It was way different. And so that was one thing. And then when I was in third grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Parsons who's passed on. And Mrs. Parsons brought a black and white TV in for us to watch the Summit Series. Wow. From the games that were in Russia. And that's when the tournament was decided, because if you remember, it was the eighth game, and Henderson and Cornway and Foster Hewitt. It was amazing stuff. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage everybody to go watch it, because it was spectacular theater. And when I got done coaching and got into media, I got this beautiful in-script handwritten letter from Mrs. Parsons, my third grade teacher. And it was about telling stories and about making sure you respect the people that helped you get to where you are. And this was before I even really started going on the media side. And I was like, oh my gosh, that resonates. That's so cool that she would take the time to do that. And so I always tell young people that want to do this, never look past the people that helped you to get to where you are. Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a broadcaster, whether you do what Jimmy and I do now, it really matters. And that's why I think you got a brilliant future. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. And that's great what you said about the odors there, Pierre, because that's what I remember about the Boston Garden. Walking up that ramp for the season, it was a season opener, right? And I don't know if you must know this, Pierre, I'm sure they did it at MSG too. So every year the Bruins would have, they'd play 3 games in the first weekend of the season, and then they'd go away for 2 weeks and the circus would come in.
We were there in the playoffs, and all the elephant dung would be there, and you walk up the platform.
So the first game back, you would walk up that ramp, and all you could smell was elephant dung.
Just like a full frontal right in your face. You're like, oh my gosh, this is gross. I'm going to give you the last anymore. I've never told this to Jimmy, and I've never told it to Nathan. And hopefully I haven't bored people, but this is a good story about the old Boston Garden. So we're playing there in the 1992 Eastern Conference Final. We're up 3-0. We know we're going to win the series. It's just a matter, do we win tonight, or do we want to go back home for Game 5? We know we're going to win, and they know we're going to win. Yeah. So it's really hot in Boston, Nathan. There's no air conditioning in the visitors' room, and we have our morning skate, and I come off, and Scotty says to me, he goes, "How'd the skate go?" I go, "Oh, good. The guys are ready to go. I feel good about it. I got a big surprise for them. You and I are going for lunch right now." So we walk out, and I forget where we go for lunch, somewhere in downtown Boston. We walk back to our hotel. At that point, we were staying at the Marriott Long Wharf. We walk back to the hotel. You'll love this story. And he says, "Hey, Pierre, I gave a credit card to our trainer." I said, "Yeah, well, what for?" He goes, "I told him to go to Brookstone and buy a portable air conditioner and put it in the room so the guys, when they come in, it's going to be cool and it's going to be really comfortable and they're going to feel really good about winning the game tonight and moving on." So we get to the rink early, both of us.
Great.
Probably the game's at 7, so we're probably there around 1:45, 2 o'clock, right after lunch. We go home, change, and then go back to the rink. It's freaking sweltering in the dressing room. The kid bought a freaking heater, not an air conditioner. He turned it up full blast. So we're like dying in there. We're like, "Oh, this is a disaster." Disaster. So this is how the NHL has changed. We had to go to the people, and John Grzelcyk, Matt Grzelcyk's father, was one of those people. He worked on the Bull Gang. They had to bring in portable curtains and put them in the hallway.
Yep.
And our guys were changing in the Boston Garden in the hallway behind curtains.
And where all the concessions are.
Behind there, walking right there.
There's like beer lines right there.
Right there. And we ended up
Did you win the game?
We won in 4. So this is a good one for you, Nathan. The 92 Penguins are the only team to win 11 straight games to win the Stanley Cup. That record never existed before, and I don't think anybody's breaking that anytime soon.
Yeah.
So we won the last 3 with the Rangers, 4 against Boston, and 4 against Chicago. And 2 of those buildings don't exist anymore. Chicago Stadium and Boston Garden.
Yep. I remember you telling me that story. It's classic.
But can you imagine it? Like, Scotty told a kid, he was so mad. I've never seen Scott. Like, Scotty would get mad, but he'd keep it in. Oh, was he hot? He was angry.
And by the way, the home dressing rooms, they were air conditioned. They used to do that on purpose. Red Auerbach used to turn the heat up for when the Lakers would come in June.
Too funny.
Good
Nathan,
stuff.
it's an unbelievable thrill to have you on. I love being your partner at UMass hockey games. Can't wait for our next one, which is, I believe, next week. Is it next week?
So next week, the two of us and Jeff Arnold will do we'll do the Alaska game, Alaska Fairbanks. Friday coming to town. Friday. And then I think we got a couple coming up. We've got the radio one at UConn in February, and then a UMass Lowell game in late February. But hopefully, many, many more to come. And I appreciate
many more to come for sure. But you are on the right track, my man. It's an honor to be your partner. Thank you very much. Jimmy, take over.
Yep, for sure, my friend. Thanks for joining us, Nathan. Good luck. Best of luck there. And Pierre will you'll hear him talking to me because he's going to be calling in to me because I'm doing a broadcast down at Sacred Heart. So it'll be in the pregame before you guys do that game for UMass. So you'll be right there. Maybe we'll pull you on. I don't mind.
We got to do a little split screen, right, for the good of the pod. But thank you both of you for having me.
All right,
what's
listen.
the name of that pizza place, Jimmy? What's the name of that?
Oh yeah, Antonio's. I'm sure he knows
Antonio's. He knows it. Antonio's.
I can see it out my apartment window. I live right in downtown. I probably go there once a week at a minimum.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a workout regimen like Pierre McGuire because I'd need one if I lived that close to it.
Thank you, guys.
Nice. Awesome stuff, Nathan. Good luck,
Nathan.
Tell Coach Carvey we say hello, okay?
Will do.
Thanks, Nathan.
Nathan Strauss joining us here on the eye test on Campus Friday. Yeah, that kid's got a bright future.
Oh, boy, Jimmy. I'm just telling you. So did we tell this story? If we did, I'll shut up. But when I told you the story about when he said, "Look at this," it was all Doc Emmerich.
Yeah, I don't think we said it online. Yeah.
So I do the first game with him.
He just showed us, right?
Yeah. So he has all these different things written down. I'm going, "What is that?" He goes, "They're all the great lines from Doc Emmerich when you used to work with him." And I'm like, "No way." He goes, "Oh yeah, I used to chart them all." He had them all right there. That's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. That's good stuff.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a hardworking, industrious fellow.
Yeah, and I was gonna say to him too, because I've got probably like almost 30 years on him. But I said, like you teach me, never stop trying to learn. never turn away a mentor, no matter how old you are, where you are in your career, because it's always going to help. So, for those young broadcasters out there listening or writers, same thing, and if you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter. I'm always here for you. For sure.
If you want to reach out to me via Jimmy, reach out. And I promise you, Jimmy knows we have a lot of people that do. We get right back in touch.
He gets right back.
Who are you watching this weekend for college? Anybody?
Well, UMass, of course, Pierre.
I know Merrimack. They got Merrimack.
Yeah, I don't know. I was perusing the schedule, Pierre. I hadn't scouted it too much yet. I'm going to check it out after we get off here. But one thing I want to tell everybody, just to remind them, because you brought up next Friday, you'll be up there with Nathan. Yep. Oh, but do not disturb just went off on my phone there. I apologize. Yep. So I will be up. I'll be down in Connecticut at Sacred Heart University. Want to remind everybody there. CT Ice, all the 4 D1 schools playing a mini tournament there at Sacred Heart University in honor of Jason Pagney. Yep. And it's put on by the Connecticut Hockey Foundation. So looking forward to that. You'll be joining me remotely. And we'll have some great in-person guests as well. But yeah, Pierre, let's pull that up. Well, we got you right now.
I'll tell you a couple that I'm going to be watching.
Yep.
Cornell at Princeton. So that's Mike Schaefer going against his old assistant, Ben Shire. So okay. I think that's going to be an important one. Colgate at Quinnipiac's a huge one for both those teams to see whether, one can beat the other. I think that's an important one. UConn at Maine is a big one in hockey. Providence at BC is a big one. And a lot of people now are starting to see Northeastern as being a potential problem. And if they go up to UVM and do some damage up there, that's a big under the radar weekend for both teams, for UMass or for Northeastern and UVM. Western Michigan at North Dakota is a big one.
Michigan State.
That's a big one. Arizona State at St. Cloud, because if Arizona State keeps winning, they're going to cause some problems in their league. Michigan State, and under the radar, and this is a big one. I think they could pull an upset. LIU at Wisconsin.
Ooh, our good friend Coach Riley. That would be nice.
They're coming off 2 losses at Colgate last weekend, and they were really tight games. And for whatever reason, I just know Coach Riley. I'm not saying they're going there and winning the weekend. Don't get me wrong, because Wisconsin's playing some pretty good hockey. But they got away. They've won. Think about LIU. They've won at Notre Dame. They won at Augustana. They tied at Providence and eventually lost in overtime. They've had some big moments this year. They beat a real good Holy Cross team. They've had some big wins this year, some really big wins.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm looking at it now. I might do a little scouting for next week's On Campus because we will have, I've confirmed it, AIC head coach Eric Lang will be joining us here.
Eric is outstanding. Eric Lang is outstanding.
They're at Sacred Heart tonight, so I'm going to check out that. And, of course, I can see that beautiful arena that I'll be at next week. So that will be something I'll check out as well. And, of course, I'm remiss not saying that I'll be watching Northeastern. I mean, obviously, I tune in for a certain number 9 on that team and watch him. But, they'll be good. I'm psyched to have Eric Lang. Obviously, horrible news this year that their program – will be no longer after this season, but I love what he did, Pierre. I sent it to you, and for those that don't know, he's putting on a transfer and portal showcase to help kids in similar situations that his players are going to be in, and that's going to be I was just told by Mike McMahon that will be the week before the Frozen Four, the weekend, because they have that break because of the final.
They're doing it in Connecticut, in Simsbury, Connecticut. So I'm pretty aware of it. And
great idea.
We're going to have some probably breaking news on that. We just aren't ready to go there yet, but we're going to help them out, and I'll explain it to you, and then we'll tell our listeners about it. But we're going to do some stuff to help them out.
Good stuff. So looking forward to having him on. And Pierre, I don't know him. You've met him. You've spoken. Everyone I talked to about Eric Lang just raves about him. Just said he's like salt of the earth and a great ambassador of the game. So very excited to have him on campus. Friday.
He's an amazing family guy. He's had a lot of big offers to take other jobs. He stayed loyal to AIC and to his family. Mm-hmm. His wife does very well in the business world. He's obvious. So they live in Connecticut. He commutes up to Springfield. It's not that far. I used to, when I coached Hartford Whalers, I used to live in that neck of the woods. So I kind of know where they are. But yeah, no, he and Coach Riley are really tight. They're very good friends. So all I can tell you this, Eric Lang's been offered a lot of big jobs, and he's turned them down to be loyal to AIC, but also to be a good father and husband.
I hope those opportunities are here from him now after this season. I'm sure they will be.
Yeah.
And by the way, for those out there that might say, who's AIC? It's American International College out of Springfield, Mass. They play in the I don't even know what they call it now. I still call it the Springfield
Mass Mutual Center.
Yeah. It's always Civic Center in my head, Pierre. I'm stuck in time.
It used to be when our farm team was there, was a Springfield Civic Center, and it was a tough place to go play. We had some tough guys in there. You didn't want to come show up and play there.
Yeah, I remember, and I remember as I got into the game, Pierre, when I started covering the Bruins and meeting a lot of the scouts, they would always go through there because that was a big place for scouts to check out players because you're right there. You got 84, you got 91, you're in between Boston, New York. So, but that just so people know, like, oh, who's AIC? So yeah, we just told you, but they were also, was it 2 years ago? They were in the Frozen Four, 3 years ago, right? They were.
I think it's a little longer than that, but
okay. Yeah, but they were there, so that's good for them. But we're looking forward to that. It's going to be great stuff. All right, Pierre. Before we get to our Betway pick of the night, I want to tell everybody about our sponsors, TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that's sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Also want to remind everybody, we're really grateful that Sam Adams and the Boston Beer Company have gotten behind this. We will be at West End Johnny's for 2 sets of games. We're going to start off this stupid phone. Apologies. We will be there February 3rd, February 10th for the Beanpot pregame from 4 to 5 p.m. And then we'll be there 2 weeks later before the Four Nations from 6 to 7 p.m. before the 2 sets of games there at TD Garden. It's at 138 Portland Street, right down the street from TD Garden. Come on down, say hello. I was already talking to some people this morning that are going to be at the Beanpot. They're getting a group together to come join us, Pierre, so they're looking forward to it. So if you're in the area, come on down. We're really grateful for West End Johnny's and also for Boston Beer Group and Sam Adams getting behind that. And in between that, in the first week of the Four Nations face-off, we will be up at McLean's Public House. It's on Upper Peel, 1420 Peel, not the old McLean's that's on Lower, the new one up on Upper Peel. McLean's Public House will be there 6 to 7 p.m. before every game in Montreal for the Four Nations face-off. All right, let's get to Betway and our pick of the day. You want to go right now, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Again, this is only available for new customers. The offer is only also available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus and please play responsibly. This was pre-recorded, this episode, so I'm not able to give you an up-to-date odds on my picks for tonight, but I'm looking at these games going on right now. Now, Pierre, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation, but he was brilliant the other night. He's been catching fire for the Vegas Golden Knights. Pavel Dorofeyev? Dorofeyev. All right. He had a hat trick the other night for the Vegas Golden Knights, and they lost that game, but I think he's going to stay hot. So take him on a goal. Just go to the prop section there. Get him on an anytime goal. From what I've been seeing over the last week, the odds for that have been pretty good. Like, you're still getting great value there from when he plays. And then also, if you go to the Buffalo Sabres, he had a hat trick on Wednesday night, and that's Ryan McLeod, Pierre, who's getting some top-line duty with the Sabres. Gritty player. He's playing great for them right now. He's taking advantage of the opportunity. Go with him on an anytime goal as well. Again, I don't know the value you'll get. You'll have to check it now. Go to Betway right now. You go to the prop section, and you'll find all that right there. Pierre, a great show. I loved it. Good to have Nathan on.
It was great. Nathan was outstanding. You were great. And looking forward to a big hockey weekend. It should be a delightful hockey weekend.
Yep, for sure. And Nathan just texted us. He said, thanks for having me on. It was our pleasure, Nathan, to have you on as well. Good luck this weekend, and good luck to all the broadcasters out there. And like we said, we're big fans of these young broadcasters coming up the the ladder here. Keep going, keep working hard. And this has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.